It wasn't long ago that I noticed a strange noise coming from the air conditioning unit in the wall of the living room. At first, it was almost imperceptible from the other noises that such a device would typically make. It started out as a slight cranking sound, only when it was first turned on. At first, I just accredited it to the age of the apartments and the appliances within. Realistically, they weren't all that old in the grand scheme of things. But without constant upkeep, things break down, things fall apart, and relatively fast. Everything in the place made at least some kind of noise. The washing machine shook. The dishwasher, it sounded like a jet engine taking off. And the fridge would kick on every few minutes and hum so loudly that I'd have to turn the television up to hear anything. So, you can see how it wasn't such a big deal for the air conditioner to make a rattle. I put this to the back of my mind as just something that comes with age. That was until it started happening more and more often. I first noticed this when I turned it on and the rattling just didn't go away after a second or two. I had better tell the landlord so maintenance can come and fix this, I thought to myself. After about a minute, it once again stopped, and the thoughts once again faded into memory. A few weeks passed, and I began to notice other strange occurrences. Scratching in the walls, the electricity flickering in and out, the occasional thump in the night. Again, things that could all happen due to the age of the wiring. Maybe a mouse had gotten into the walls or a noisy new neighbor had moved in. All very explainable, I thought. Besides, I worked a lot. I really didn't have a lot of free time to do much, so it didn't really bother me. But when things started to go missing in my tiny, one-bedroom apartment, that's when I started to worry. I hadn't come home in what felt like a couple of weeks. Between work and friends, I was barely there at all, besides to sleep and bathe. I figured that I should do a thorough search of the place and see where these things could have gone. The TV remote, a calculator, several pairs of socks, and one shoe were apparently misplaced. So, I went through room to room, which was really only 4 rooms, searching high and low to find my things. And as I did this, I noticed that more and more small, ineffectual things were also missing. Strange, I thought. Where could these things have gone? I hit the power button on my TV and I sat down in my once familiar armchair, now a stranger in my own forgotten home, and I noticed something. The TV was not on. I flipped the light switch up and down, but nothing. Oh, for God's sake, this is getting a little ridiculous. I got up and twisted the knob on the stereo. Nothing. I went around and tested all the appliances to see if they were still functioning. It was to no avail. Not a thing in the place was still working, except for, strangely enough, the increasingly loud air conditioner. It came on with a loud rattle. It ran that way for several minutes until it sparked. I heard a loud pop, and then it too died. Maybe the power is out. Maybe it'll be fine in the morning, I thought to myself, half-heartedly. I had a hard time sleeping that night. The neighbors were especially loud, and the being without power made me a little bit nervous. I woke up the next morning to find that the power was still out. I took a shower, got dressed, and I went over to my neighbor's place to ask if they were having similar problems. I knocked loudly, several times, but there was no answer. I decided enough was enough, and I went to the maintenance office to complain and, hopefully, resolve the issues. When I opened the door, the smell of stale smoke swept into my nostrils. This place was a mess. Papers and ashes all about the desk, peeling paint, smudges on the windows, and a television with only static bolted to the wall. Sitting behind the desk was a thin, greying man who looked as if he hadn't bathed in a week. I told him about how everything was suddenly not working, but the AC unit, until it spluttered its last. He gave me a sarcastic look, and with a gruff, he grabbed his toolbox and followed me back to my apartment. You see, I would have called, but for some reason, nothing seemed to be working. And I don't think the power is out because the air conditioner was still running and suddenly died. Well, let's take a look, he said. He went over to it and unscrewed the faceplate and peered inside. He clicked his flashlight on and went to work unscrewing and checking different things. Suddenly, he stopped and pulled out a tiny thing attached to a cord that didn't look like it belonged. He looked at me with a raised eyebrow. This yours? I couldn't even identify what he was holding. I don't believe so. What is it? It's one of those little spy cameras. You haven't been having girls over, secretly taping them, have you? He gave me a sly grin. What? No. What the hell was that doing in my home? I was getting scared and a little bit frustrated. He shrugged. Well, let's see where this wire goes, huh? He followed the wire with his hand and stopped to look inside. There's a hole in here. It goes into the wall. He pulled out his hammer and got to work taking chunks out of the drywall and following that cord. I was freaking out. Who put that there? Was this dirty old man watching me? Are there more of those? All these things went through my head as I watched him work. Well, that explains a lot, he said under his breath. What? What is it? I exclaimed. Looks like somebody rewired your outlets over here. He backed away to show me what he was seeing. But why? My best guess? Stealing your power. You sure you didn't notice anything? His calmness put me on edge. I thought back to the odd noises in my walls, the thumping, the flickering lights. What had once seemed like such a normal thing had my heart racing. I noticed a few things here and there, but I haven't been here a lot lately. I thought it was just an old place. He gave me a skeptical look and continued following the ever-expanding bunch of wires and cables throughout the place. Some of the wires would branch off to more tiny cameras hidden in vents and just in the shadows. One of them was even wired into the eye of one of my pictures. How have I not noticed these? My heart was beating faster and faster as he discovered more and more. He kept going, and one by one found all of my electricity had been rewired into one central bunch that led into the bedroom. My heart stopped. How long have these been here? Not long, I'd say. We check all the appliances and outlets before we rent the places out. Well, where does it all lead? He kept knocking holes with his hammer and following the dreaded cables, until finally he stopped and looked into one of the most recent holes he made with a flashlight. The space between the walls gets a lot bigger here. I think I could fit in there. I can see something. Something glowing just around the corner. He smashed a hole just big enough for him to squeeze through and disappeared into my bedroom wall. He appeared a few seconds later with a grim look on his face and his skin pale. He was no longer the calm, apparently fearless man he was before. You aren't gonna want to hear this. There's a little room back there. Bunch of monitors set up all over. All sorts of crap scattered around. Looks like somebody was living in there. No sign of him now. He swallowed hard. This place is starting to freak me the hell out. If I were you, I'd move. I packed my things and left for my parents' house that day, not wanting to spend another second in that place. Over the next few days, the police came in and investigated the whole scene. They found 20 different monitors, all linked up to VHS players in that little room in the walls. Surprisingly though, no tapes were ever found, and neither was the thing that had been watching me all those nights. A few weeks had passed, and a box arrived on my mother's doorstep. It was unlabeled, but inside were all the little things that had gone missing from my apartment. Within all this, I also found a dirty, ripped piece of paper with a barely legible message scrawled on it. I like your new place much better.